Call of the Void contains strong language and possible trigger warnings and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, I'm Daekon.
Hi, I'm Jack.
And welcome to Call of the Void, a podcast about all things weird and macabre.
So Daekon.
Yes.
What scarred you as a child?
Oh, good. There were quite a few things.
What things just gave you so much trauma that even as an adult you can look back and go, oh yeah.
Well, I mean, okay. Some are kind of dumb, like where my fears come from.
That's fine. I've got a few dumb ones.
So one for me, I'm not gonna get into like my super dumb one, but I know one thing for sure that like super fucked me up as a kid, and I don't like these shows are, well, it's not really a show. These two movies in particular are very well beloved. I wanna put that out there. They're made for kids. They're definitely kids things. 100% for kids. First and foremost, Fern Gully,
which I've never seen.
Fern Gully is sort of a nature conservation movie. Like, there's these like fairies and stuff, and they're trying to protect their home, which is called Fern Gully. But
I thought her name was Fern Gully this whole time. No.
So, what's absolutely terrifying about this movie is a character named Hexus, who is pollution embodied. Oh. He's this weird gloppy, like, oil, like, black tar thing. But he has this one song in the movie. It's also voiced by Tim Curry, so surprise, surprise.
Oh, okay. I got you now. I understand.
But he has a song called Toxic Love, and he's like crawling up through the like interior, like basically the guts of a bulldozer. Mm-hmm. And there's like one scene where he's like coming up through there, and he's just like this really, he's like a skeleton, but it's all like gloopy and gloppy and falling apart. And I was like, it traumatized the shit out of me as a kid. Like I left crying.
No.
I still can't watch that movie, like, ever. I am literally terrified of Hexes, and I have been my entire life.
Yeah.
But secondary movie. Okay. There's another kids movie. It's definitely a kids movie. It's 100% meant for kids.
100% movie for 100% kids.
Yep. I'm so embarrassed of this one.
It's okay. I've got some stupid ones.
Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Really?
That movie scared the shit out of me as a child. Here's why. Ready? Okay. So for the first time ever in the history of Scooby-Doo, the monsters were real.
Oh.
And to tiny Daekon brain, it was the worst thing ever. And the bad part is the zombies aren't the scary bit of the movie. they're not the monsters in question. Like, yes, they are monsters and they're real, but it's the two cat ladies. Like, they're the bad guys.
I know I've seen this movie, but I barely remember it, apparently.
I mean, they had a couple other movies that followed the same vein, like The Witch's Ghost, where it turned out like it was legit, like actually happening. Like the guy was a fucking warlock and shit. Like,
which one was the one with the Hex Girls?
Hex Girls? I believe it was Witch's Ghost. I believe Witch's Ghost was Hex Girls.
Yes.
But yes, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island scared the absolute ever-loving fuck out of me. Because, again, for the first time ever in the history of Scooby-Doo, the monsters were legitimately real. They weren't a person in a mask. And it terrified me as a child.
Yeah.
I still can't watch that movie either.
Yeah,
I'm 25 years old, and I still can't watch that fucking movie.
I don't blame you. Like, okay, so one of my really stupid, like, really, really stupid ones, and I know it's stupid, but to this day, I can't, like, okay, so it's so hard to even say, it's so stupid. Okay, so, alright, so, you know,
everybody out there that's listening to this is gonna be like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
So, okay, so you know the White Album by the Beatles?
I do?
Okay, so when I was in school, how old was I? I'm trying to think of the classroom I was in at the time. I was maybe 9 years old? Yeah, I think I was 9 years old. I'm pretty sure I was in the 4th grade at the time. So we had a music teacher who decided that our music festival, whatever, not festival, but like our performance thing that we did every year was going to be Beatles theme. What?
No, I imagined, you said music festival.
Yeah.
And my brain defaulting, my stupid lizard brain went to like a kindergarten like music festival called Gagapalooza. Like Lollapalooza, but just
that's amazing.
Babies,
that's amazing.
teeny baboos,
Baboos.
But yeah,
Anyway.
dumb stupid lizard brain.
So my music teacher was like, yeah, it's gonna be the Beatles. And like, I grew up listening to the Beatles, so at first I was like, yeah, this is gonna be great. And he felt the need to explain to us some of the conspiracy theories. These 9-year-olds, he felt the need to explain some conspiracy theories about the White Album, particularly Revolution Number 9. And he played us this song, which I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's creepy as fuck. And allegedly, like, it's supposed to, like, say messages if you play it backwards. And, like, to this day, like, if I hear shit like, oh, well, if you play this backwards, blah, 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 like, it brings me right there, and I get a little creeped out by it. And, like, he told us about the whole thing about, like, I Buried Paul, and that people think that Paul McCartney is dead, and this is a replacement, and everything. 9-year-olds. 9-year-olds he's telling this to. So, like, I still cannot listen to Revolution Number 9 to this day. Because, like, I've basically almost completely forgotten what it sounds like. I just, like, I have something kind of stuck in my head of what it sounds like. But I just remember being so creeped out by it. And when I went home, like, that followed me the entire day. And when I came home, my parents, like, saw that something was bothering me. So they were both like, what's up? Like, what's wrong? Like, clearly something's wrong. Because I wouldn't talk about it. I finally talked about it at dinner. Like, I went the entire day, like, not talking about it because I was like, if I don't talk about it, it's not real. So yeah, and both of my parents were like, is he a fucking idiot? Like, telling these kids this?
Yeah, he definitely is. He's 100%.
And my mom explained it to me and was like, like, some people think that, I know exactly what you're talking about, but, like, some people like to make up stories and they think that, and, like, her explanation did not make me feel better. So, to this day, I cannot listen to that stupid song because of that.
Okay. So I think I've had this discussion with you, but I've not actually talked about this too much outside of that, and I feel like everybody who may be listening to this right now would be interested in this. So another movie that freaked me out as a kid, that has had lasting effects on me to this day. Disney's A Bug's Life.
Yes, you have mentioned this one to me.
Because of this movie, I am terrified. I am absolutely 100% terrified of grasshoppers. Specifically grasshoppers. Every other bug and insect and whatever is fine. I love spiders. Like, I'm chill with them. I don't have any issues with any other bug. Just grasshoppers.
Spiders are arachnids.
Well, I know technically, but actually, A Bug's Life. Okay, so A Bug's Life is a weird movie for me because it's the movie that made me like spiders and made me hate grasshoppers. Because one of the sweetest characters in the entire thing is the Black Widow, the spider lady.
Yeah.
And she's like a big sweetheart, and I love her.
Yeah.
And then you have fucking Hopper, who's like the biggest fucking asshole on the face of the planet, and I hate him.
I love that there are so many children's movies that don't vilify spiders and kind of make them the good guys,
Like James and the Giant Peach was another one.
Yeah, and obviously Charlotte's Web. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love movies that like don't demonize spiders, but yes, but we should make more movies that demonize grasshoppers because they're the spawn of Satan.
I don't like anything in that family of insects.
I mean, I'm even okay with locusts. Like, I'm okay with locusts. Like, I just very specifically grasshoppers are terrifying to me.
I don't like grasshoppers. I don't like crickets. I don't like katydids. I don't like any of that shit.
Like, yeah, I mean, I like cicadas. I like crickets.
How?
I'm okay with all of them.
How do you like cicadas?
I don't know. They look kind of cute.
Did I ever tell you the stupid reason that I wouldn't kill a cicada?
Why?
Because I almost did. Okay, so like obviously they're kind of blind and they don't like know like where they are and everything and like
Yeah.
So it was cicada season. And I was walking.
Oh yeah, cicada season is the worst. It's literally the worst. It's worse than mayfly season.
Yeah. So I was walking around, and there was this cicada on the floor, and I freaked out and almost stepped on it. And then in the back of my head, a voice was like, "Come on, dude. He's just looking for love. Like, don't do that." And I instantly felt terrible for the cicada, and I'm like, "You go, little guy."
But yeah, so A Bug's Life, like, both simultaneously made me like spiders and hate grasshoppers. And Hopper is a dick, and he's 100% why I don't like one of the reasons I don't like grasshoppers, but also like I forget what its name is, but the like really feral one that kept growling at like Flick the whole time.
No, fuck that
Like, I was
noise.
like, I hate this. I hate that movie.
But what's really funny because I'm a little bit older than you, so like when you talk about these movies, I think about like how old I was when they came out, and sometimes I totally forget that you were like itty bitty and like and this was probably like the most traumatizing thing to you.
Yeah, I was ittle bittle.
Yeah.
But I mean, then again, I was also born the same year as Nightmare Before Christmas, and that was one of my first Disney movies, and it totally didn't creep me out at all. I was like, I love this.
No, like I definitely have like weird shit like that where, the shit that you would think would have creeped me out as a kid, like, didn't. Like, there was this one thing, I actually, like, I just tweeted, it's my pinned tweet, right now, on my horror Twitter page, but I found this GIF of a frame from a kid's show that I used to watch when I was growing up called Ghost Rider. And there was this episode where, like, the kids were making up, I think, like, they had to make up a horror story for, like, a contest or something. So they created this story around this, like, purple, gross doll called Gooey Gus. And, like, and to a degree, it creeped me out a little bit, but for the most part, like, I gotta tell you, like, I remember loving the show, but I can't really tell you that much about what the show is about, because, like, that's really the only episode that really sticks in my head. And, like, I remember being in the 3rd grade, and, like, my very first fan fiction, actually, I wrote my own Gooey Gus story, like, when I was in the 3rd grade. And, like something like that. And when I found the GIF, I was like, oh, hey, like, let me look up some stuff about it, like, refresh my memory. Yeah. And half the shit that came up about it were, like, all of these people writing about how that episode scarred them when they were kids. And I was like, oh, like, I loved this when I was a kid. It never occurred to me that there would be people that would be so scared of this, you know? Like, that didn't scare me, but, like, but a fucking song did.
Yeah. I mean, there were other things that were made that were, like, seemingly for kids that I was, like, told to watch as a kid.
Yeah. Like what?
This is a thing that was definitely 100% not made for children, but my parents thought that it was, and they, like, sat me down and had me watch it.
Good old days before the internet.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna say it, and you're gonna know exactly what it is, like, immediately. Okay. Hopefully. Okay. Watership Down.
I've heard of it.
And The Plague Dogs.
I've never heard of that one.
It was another movie in the same vein. Both of them were Richard Adams novels. Okay. But Watership Down is an extremely bloody, gory movie. And I mean, it's about bunnies, rabbits and shit.
Okay.
It's not a great movie to, like, show your child. But my parents were under the impression that it was a kid's movie. Yeah. I mean, another thing that also scared me as a kid, which I do believe that this was actually made for kids, but The Secret of NIMH was another one that kind of scared me a little bit. Don Bluth.
Yeah, another thing that I've never seen.
It's a fantastic movie, and I've watched it again since I was a kid, but whenever I was a kid, it was, like, really creepy. Mm-hmm. I didn't like it too much. Mm-hmm. My parents didn't expect it to be as weird as it was. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Watership Down and The Plague Dogs was, like, infinitely a million times worse than The Secret of NIMH, though.
Yeah. I gotta watch this shit and see what.
Yeah, like, for real.
'Cause, like,
speaking of, here's another one that you haven't seen.
What?
So you were talking about earlier how, like, we were saying, like, some things scared us as a kid, but other things didn't, and it's weird, like, what the distinction is.
Yeah.
So I kind of talked about it in the last episode, but I don't like clowns. Mm-hmm. My fear of clowns does not stem from it, like most people's.
Yeah, a lot of people that don't like clowns, that's where it's from.
My fear of clowns stems from The Brave Little Toaster.
I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at the title.
In The Brave Little Toaster, there is a dream sequence where like all the toaster and all his friends are scooped up by like this big clown and put on a conveyor belt to be destroyed. And it's like this big, like, happy face smiling clown with the like those kind of clowns, like the smiley ones, the normal ass looking clowns, scare me 1,000,000,000 times more than like a scary clown with sharp teeth.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason being is because I don't know, like it seems like it's something sinister. Like there's something really definitely sinister about somebody who, I don't know, like it. There's something about that whole situation. It makes me feel like they're hiding something. Like
yes,
that
I can see that.
Yeah, like that they're painted that way and they're smiling or whatever, but they could also be like a serial killer.
Yeah.
Like it makes me feel like they're hiding something.
John Wayne Gacy.
Terrifying to me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, like that kind of thing is terrifying to me, and it's not that like, oh, I don't know who you are, but that plays into it. But it always seems to me that like it's always the seedier types of people who go into being a clown.
There's actually this documentary, I think it's still on Netflix, called Killer Legends. I love this documentary. I've watched it a bunch of times, and it goes into like what the real life origins would have been, possibly, for like 4 different urban legends, and one of them is the killer clown thing. And it's fascinating, and they talk about John Wayne Gacy and all that stuff. But I do highly recommend that. Those filmmakers also did another thing. I mentioned the Staten Island Clown in the last episode. They did another documentary called Cropsy about kind of a local urban legend that turned out to kind of be true on Staten Island. So they're really worth looking into their work.
It's just, I don't know, like it's strange to me that something like, because I remember watching it and not being super scared of it. Like it wasn't something that was extremely traumatizing for me. And then I watch a fucking cartoon.
No, I get,
and it's like, nope, can't deal with that. Nope, don't like it.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, I can see that. Like, I mean, when I was really little, I saw a clip of The Exorcist, and it was like when her head's spinning around and she has that creepy face, and I laughed my ass off when I saw that as a tiny child. It wasn't until I was in high school and I saw that same clip again that I was like, what the fuck was wrong with me as a kid?
I mean, there's like a lot of horror movies that I remember watching as a kid, like Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, those movies didn't scare me.
There's a part of the original one that still, I can't, like, don't even talk about it. I don't want to think about it. And it's like... And
you realize you're gonna have to now, right?
Oh, I'm totally gonna have to. And it's like... And it's the dumbest part. It's not even, like, any of the kills. It's when he's, like, walking down the street and his arms are hyperextended. Like, that creeped me out.
Oh,
when
Jesus.
I was a kid.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and because of that, you know, and I'll talk about this more on another episode, because it is something I would love to talk about. But like, I think it's funny that a Nightmare on Elm Street movie is the reason I started writing horror. Like, I've been writing my whole life, but I didn't think to actually start writing anything horror until I went to see, because Jackie Earle Haley is my favorite actor, so I went to see the remake of Elm Street, which, you know, however you feel about that movie, I left that theater going like,
I personally liked it. I thought it was decent.
Like,
it wasn't awful.
Okay, I liked it. And I have a lot of things to say about it, which is why I'm cutting myself off on that, because I can and will go on a rant about certain things, but that's for another time. But yeah, like, speaking of movies, one of the big ones that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid was it was The Langoliers.
The Langoliers was one that was... Yeah.
So I used to, I didn't really, excuse me. So I had a really weird, kind of messed up childhood, and I didn't really, like, I never really had a bed. I slept on, like, couches or the floor for most of my life. And one time, like, when I was sleeping on the couch, my parents thought I was asleep, so they put on The Langoliers, like it was on TV. And here's the weird thing, like, especially when I was a kid, for some reason now I have terrible insomnia. But when I was a kid, I used to be able to go out like a light, and I was such a heavy, heavy sleeper that my mom would actually be scared that if they needed to, like, wake me up for whatever reason, they wouldn't be able to. Like that you could crash cymbals next to my head and I wouldn't budge. Like, that's how deep of a sleeper I was. And
man, must be nice.
It was. I miss it. I miss it so much. But so this was one of the rarest moments where I woke up while they were watching it, and I knew I wasn't supposed to be awake, so I was trying to pretend that I was still sleeping. And I used to have this fear when I was a kid, like, whenever I took a nap, and, like, when I first woke up from the nap and everything was kind of, like, quiet and, you know, I didn't hear anybody, I was always terrified that everybody had disappeared and I was, like, the only person left.
Yep, I have that fear sometimes.
Yeah, and there was actually a Goosebumps book that I believe that was like that I actually really enjoyed. But yeah, so I woke up, and there's this part where the blind girl is... I never remember who the woman is. I want to say it's her aunt. But everybody that was asleep on this flight is still there, and everybody that was awake is gone. So she gets up, and she's, like, feeling around because her aunt doesn't answer her when she calls for her. And her aunt is just gone. And that freaked me out so badly. But on top of that, like, there was the show, it ran in the 80s, it ended in the early 90s, that I used to watch that I loved, called Perfect Strangers. And, you know, like, when you're a kid, you don't understand the concept of actors. So, like, so when you see somebody in a role, you just think that they're that person.
Yeah.
So, on Perfect Strangers, my favorite character was this guy, Balky, who, Balky, I believe, who was played by, oh god, I forget the actor's name, but the guy who played the huge dick in the movie. And, I'm looking it up now. And that also scarred the shit out of me. Because, like, I loved Balky so much, and he was this, like, really goofy, hilarious, off-the-wall guy. And then I see him in this movie, and he is, like, the biggest asshole. Like, he's willing to sacrifice a little girl. Like, and that scarred the shit out of me. And, like, I never really looked at him the same way again, like, when I was a kid. And if I recall correctly, like... Not that I stopped watching Perfect Strangers, but it was hard for me to watch the show after that. But yeah, like, and then that was another thing, like, when I got older, I saw it again, and I was like, I mean, I can understand how this would fuck up a kid, but I hate that I was so scared of this.
Yeah, like, The Langoliers was one that really messed me up. There's a lot of Stephen King just in general that, like, I remember watching as a kid and being like, what in the actual fuck, I hate this.
Yeah.
that now looking back on, I'm like, oh, that's not that bad. The Langoliers is still one that screws with me.
Bronson Pinchot, by the way, is the actor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Langoliers is still one that messes with me. There's another one, I can't remember what it is now, but it was like a mini-series. God, I can't forget to say anything about it.
No, what happens in it? I might know it.
Okay, so it's this little town, and it's always a little town.
Is it a quiet village?
Oh my god, cease and desist. There was it's like this lady was like unburying this weird relic, and people in the town were starting to get smarter and all this stuff from like this strange relic in the town. It was really weird, and everybody starts acting really funny and basically becomes like a weird hive mind.
No, I don't.
And there's this one guy who isn't a part of it, and he's like, what the fuck? And they got like hunt him down and try to kill him and shit.
I don't remember that at all. So no, I don't know that.
I remember seeing that one. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but
did you ever?
But I remember seeing that.
Did you ever watch Crypt Keeper as a kid?
Yes. Crypt Keeper never scared me.
Exactly. Like,
I was like, this show is so cool.
I bring it up because that was another thing that I was like, man, this is awesome, and like it didn't bother me at all, and like.
Yeah,
God.
I mean,
and Jaws.
It was stupid.
When I was a kid, Jaws was my favorite movie. I loved it. Like, okay, so actually, that's funny that I brought it up so nonchalantly, and now I remember. Okay, so there's one part in Jaws, just one, that I had such a hard time watching as a kid, and to this day, I just refuse to watch it. And I've had friends laugh at me for it because they're like, it's the silliest part of the whole movie, and you can tell that it's totally fake. Why are you so scared of it?
Yeah.
But it's just, it's because it brings back those feelings, and it's when they find Ben Gardner underwater. Oh. Like, I can't watch that. Like, that's, like, oh no.
Oh, I remember another movie that I watched as a kid that severely fucked me up. It just popped into my brain.
What?
Cabin Fever.
I've never seen it. I believe I saw the one in the school because one of my friends, and I say this like I'm choosing this word because that's exactly what it was. She subjected me to this movie.
Cabin Fever was, at least the first one. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've. I don't know if you remember it.
I remember, yeah, like vaguely the one.
But they go to a cabin in the woods because of course they fucking do. Mm-hmm. And the water supply, like on their first day, this guy shows up, and he's like really delirious and begging them for help or whatever, and they send him away, and he vomits like all over the car. And he goes like running off, and he dies in the water, and he had like a flesh-eating bacteria.
Oh, sweet.
So it gets in the water supply, and everybody's drinking the water except for one guy who has been drinking nothing but beer the whole time. But everybody's drinking the water, and like one of the ladies is like shaving her legs, and like
okay, so I don't know if you saw me just then, but I shuddered, and the reason I shuddered is because that is the only thing that I've ever seen of that movie, and every time I think about like shaving legs, like that momentarily enters my brain.
they lock her in the barn, and like a dog comes in and eats her.
Oh.
And then there's the one thing that always gets me is there's a guy who, there's like the kid that like bites everybody, and like that kid comes up and bites him or whatever, and he's infected with it, and on his way home he's like, I mean, he already had it, so that kid now has it or whatever. But he's like scratching the back of his neck and his fingers go through the back of his neck. Like, everything about that movie gives me the heebie-fucking-jeebies.
Oh, I just thought of something along that same vein.
And then, then at the very end of the movie, like, they kill everybody that was in the cabin to get rid of the disease.
Good.
Even the guy who was drinking the beer, like, he comes out and he's like, I lived, I did it, I made it through. And, like, immediately they, like, shoot him up with bullets and throw him on a pyre. But, one of the guys, like, was near the creek and died there, and you see, like, just down the road or down the stream a little bit, there's some kids scooping up, like, water from the creek to use for lemonade. And I was like, oh no, like that, like, I hate that movie so much.
Yeah.
And
I would never watch it.
It literally gives me the creeps, and I was terrified of going into, like, big things of water like that for a really long time, because I was terrified that, like, oh, I'm gonna get some kind of weird flesh-eating bacteria and die.
That just reminded me. Okay, I'll tell you the one I just laughed at in a second. But along that same vein, the flesh-eating thing, another stupid thing that scarred the shit out of me as a kid was, it was one of the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episodes, and it ended with, like, this gas getting through the windows, and it turns people inside out. So then there were just these, like, dancing bloody meat bags, like, like doing a dance number, and there's, like, and it was just, it scared the shit out of me, and I refused to sleep with the windows open for a while, and, like, but
I mean, I remember, the thing with me, I remember loving the Treehouse of Horror episodes, because I don't like The Simpsons all, but I love the Treehouse of Horror episodes.
I loved Treehouse of Horror, I just hated that part. Like, that was, like, I enjoyed the episode, and then that's how they repaid me. But yeah.
Do you remember, this is completely off topic, but do you remember Halloween? I was still a little kid at this point, because I was still getting Happy Meals. Aww. But one of the Happy Meal toys was Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, like, toys that related to the fucking Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episodes, and I was like, why the fuck are they giving these to children? Like, I remember as a kid, like, telling my dad, like, why am I getting this? This is the Simpsons. You guys don't allow me to watch this. I mean, I watch it anyway, but
okay, well, when I was, and then I'll say the other thing that made me laugh that scarred me. But, like, when I was a little kid, like, I'm 30. The Simpsons is a year younger than I am. And when I was 2 or 3, I had relatives from Italy come to visit us, and they wanted to buy me something. They wanted to buy me a toy. And the entire day we were at our mall, like, walking around, and, like, they were like, oh, you know, like, do you want this? And I didn't want anything. And then I saw this Bart Simpson doll. And I freaked the fuck out because I wanted Bart Simpson. And my mom was like, oh God, no. Like, I don't, and, like, and my relatives were like, come on, like, this is the one thing that she wants. You're not gonna let her get it? So I still have him. He's somewhere. I think he's in storage. But yeah.
Should have been, like, just like, eat my shorts, Mom.
Like, this is how old, like, he had a blue shirt. Like, that's how old of a doll it was.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So, like, damn. Like, and I loved that thing, like, growing up. But yeah, so the traumatic thing that I laughed at when I was thinking about that was, I'm trying to think how old I was when I saw this. Because I think like, it's one of those things that it shouldn't have affected me as much as it did, I feel like. Like, I want to say I was probably, like, maybe around 12, the youngest.
Yeah.
So, The Godfather. The scene with the horse and the horse's head in the bed.
Oh, yeah.
Which I later found out the guy who was in that scene didn't know that they were putting a real horse's head in his bed, apparently. I don't know how true that is. But somebody recently told me that because they wanted to get an honest reaction, and if that's the case, that's not cool. Don't put horses' heads in beds. But it affected me to the point where I basically slept with my knees in my chest for many years, with my blankets firmly tucked under me. Like, for years. Yeah. Like, I think I finally stopped sleeping that way when I was like 17. It was like, that's how bad that, like, and I still can't, like, my brother kind of laughs because there was this one day where, like, my dad was watching, like, I was in the room and my dad was watching it, and it showed that scene, and the guy in the movie is going, ah, and I go, ah, because I don't want to see it, and my dad goes, oh, because I was a little too loud. And he was trying to watch it, so it was just like a chorus of groans. Yeah.
I think one last one from me was another movie that I really shouldn't have watched as a kid that I did watch, which is why I really don't like zombie things at all.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
I don't like zombies. I don't like anything that has to do with zombies. I've never liked zombies. I watched so it's two movies that I watched back to back that I really don't like, and it's the original Dawn of the Dead.
Okay.
And like the black and white one, and the other being Pet Sematary, both of which fucked me up.
Okay.
And since then, like, I really don't like zombies at all. At all. And I've never liked them. I've played things like, you know, I have played like the first Resident Evil, and we talked about this before in another podcast, but I played the first Resident Evil and like part of Resident Evil 7, and like that's it. But I don't do zombie shit. Like, never have, probably never will, because my brain always goes like, this would be an awful, awful, awful scenario. And I never, ever, ever want that to happen, because I know friends who are like, oh man, I really want there to be a zombie apocalypse. That would be so much fun. And I'm like, what the fuck are you on about? Like, how would that be fun? Question mark? Question mark? Question mark? But yeah, I mean, I've never liked zombies because I unfortunately watched those movies at a really, really, really young age. And the one thing that I always think about is, like, at that time, I was like, what if, like, my parents, like, were killed in a zombie apocalypse, and that left me on my own? How would I be able to take care of myself? I'm just a kid. I don't know how to take care of myself. Now that I'm older, like, it's, what if everybody else except for my sister, like me and my sister, I don't know how to I don't know if I would be able to take care of her and keep her safe, and that kind of thing. So that it's those kind of situations for me, like, that my brain will always be like, I really hate zombies. I really hate everything to do with zombies. The only thing that I can ever say that I've liked that is sort of relatively zombies, but not really, I don't count them as zombies, would be The Last of Us. Because they're not technically zombies, they're infected with cordyceps, which is slightly different. It's a fungus that affects the brain. It's not like a disease or something like that. Like, it's spores. So that's, you know, that's where that comes from for me. It's still technically zombies, but, like, I don't count it because they don't look like zombies. Like, they look like big mushroom monsters.
Well, that's another fear. Big mushroom monsters. I don't actually. I'm not afraid of that. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else for me. Because, like... Well, yeah, there was one story I heard when I was a kid. So there's that Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark or something like that.
Yes.
That series, which Guillermo del Toro is doing, apparently.
Yes, and I'm super excited for it because I love those books.
Yeah, so number one, I didn't know that they were kids' books. And number two, I never read them when I was a kid. So when I first got the Kindle app for my old laptop, that was one of the books it came with. Like, I got a couple of free books.
Yeah.
And one of the books in that series came with it. And I remember, like, oh, sweet, like a horror thing, like, let me check this out. So I started to read it, and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, this story doesn't make any sense. I don't like it. You know, like, this is a bust. And then I was watching, want to say, because, like, a bunch of YouTubers did that thing a while ago, like, you know, childhood traumas and stuff. Which, to be quite honest, I didn't remember until I was like, yeah, I want to talk about shit that traumatized me as a kid. But, like, but yeah, I want to say it was Nick Spears who did a video on this book series. And, like, she's talking about it, and she says that it's a kid's book, and then immediately everything clicks. And I was like, oh, like, if I was a kid, this would have been terrifying, you know? But, like...
Yeah. My favorite story out of all of them is, what was it? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's called Harold the Scarecrow.
I don't know that one.
Basically, it's like this scarecrow that, like, I don't know, it's really strange. Basically, like, he rips a person's skin off and lays it out to dry in the sun on like the roof of a house. Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
I was real small when I read that, and it scared the shit out of me, but then I was like, you know, as I got older, like, that's the one I remember the most, and I've always been like, this is my favorite story from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
But it's funny because I don't know for sure if this story was included in one of those books or whatever, but I remember hearing that it was or whatever. But I remember when I was really small, and I was in school, and it was getting close to Halloween, they used to, like, sometimes read us, like, scary stories and stuff. And I didn't remember this story until a friend of mine brought it up, like, actually, it was like a year ago. Like, we were out to lunch catching up, and I don't remember why she even brought it up. She was talking about it, and it was a thing that I used to think about a lot. And it was a story about this girl and her next door neighbor, and they were, like, best friends, and she always wore a ribbon around her neck. And
I think I know this story.
What? You know the story?
Like, I really think I know the story.
This ribbon. She always wore a ribbon around her neck, and the little boy was always like, you know, why do you wear that? Like, and she was like, I'll tell you, like, when we get older. And that was always her response. They wind up, like, falling in love, getting married, and then, like, they're old and she's dying, and he asks her again, like, you never told me why. And then she undoes the ribbon and her fucking head falls off. And that freaked me out as a kid. And then I was like, okay, so I'm pretty sure this story was included in one of those books. And that just kind of also made me think about it in a completely different way, because I did hear one of these stories and it did do what it was supposed to do, but, like, some of this shit, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I'm of the opinion that sometimes, like, like, kids are way stronger than we give them credit for. But even with that, come on. Like,
yeah.
Like, some of those stories are a touch much.
Yeah. Some of them are, like, they build them up just to be, like, super dramatic.
Yeah.
And, yeah, because they know that, like, a kid is going to imagine that in their head and be scared of it.
Yeah.
And the story doesn't have to make sense, just the payoff.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But, because a kid will make sense of anything.
Yeah.
If they put their mind to it. Like,
Yes.
they'll figure out a way to, like, piece everything together and be like, oh, that story makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you get from a fucking living scarecrow that, like... I don't know how you get, like, from a scarecrow to, like, a living scarecrow that takes people's skin off and lays it out on the roof of a house to dry in the sun. Like, I don't know how you get to that point, but I remember it scaring the shit out of me as a child.
Supernatural did one of those. There was a scarecrow like that in an episode.
That also may be why I don't like Jeepers Creepers.
That's one of my brother's favorite movies.
I hate those movies.
That's one of my brother's favorite.
White hot burning passion.
And yeah, that makes total sense why you wouldn't like that movie.
Yep. But I think that is about all the time we've got for this episode.
Yes, it is.
So, until next time, I'm Deacon.
I'm Jack.
And good night, everybody. Sweet dreams.